set up here. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the NRCS Web Soil Survey webinar. We're going to go over a few things that we have in soil survey, how to get information, and a few other applications that we have. I'll introduce myself, and then Phil can introduce himself as well. So I'm Tony Rolfus. I know a number of you, but I'm the state soil scientist here in Davis, California. I've been in Davis for about 7 years. Prior to that, I was the state soil scientist in Hawaii, and for 8 years. And prior to that, I was in Montana as a project leader in Gallatin County, Bozeman area, and then a resource soil scientist, kind of like what Phil is today. So go ahead, Phil.
Yes, good morning. I'm Phil Smith. I'm the area resource soil scientist here in Salinas, California. Cover an area from San Luis Obispo County in the south up to Sonoma and Marin, Solano counties in the north, mainly Central Coast, and also San Joaquin and Stanislaus counties in the Central Valley. Been working here at NRCS for about 20 years. Worked in New York, Georgia, and I've been in California since 2010. And glad to be here today.
All right, thank you, Phil. I'm going to turn my camera off and get the PowerPoint presentation up. If you could put in the poll question when you get that in. I'll share my screen in a minute. Let me do this. Share. Okay. Can you see my screen, Phil?
Yes, I do. I'm entering the poll question. That'll be up momentarily.
Okay. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining. We'll go over all the applications on soil survey, web soil survey. And we have a poll question for you in a minute that Phil's going to enter into the chat. Oops, I'm at the end of the presentation. Sorry about that. Start at the beginning. Bring that up. So there we are again. So Phil's down in Salinas area. I'm in Davis. And one thing about, if you have questions, because there's a few number of you on today, we can go in, Phil can go in and unmute you to do it through the mic, or you can enter your questions in the chat as we go through. Since we have a small group, we can also just go ahead and answer questions when I'm doing the web soil survey. I'm going to do that live. If you have questions, just raise your hand or enter in the chat, and Phil can monitor those questions.
And I have our first poll question up.
Okay.
Has everyone participated in the poll?
I haven't seen it yet.
Got 6 responses so far.
I got to look at the chat. There you go.
Seven. Okay.
So what are you seeing there, Phil?
Okay, I think I just closed the poll, and it looks like we have 7 responses. 5 participants have said yes many times, and 2 participants have not used the soils data at all. So we've got 28% folks who may be new to web soil survey and soils information.
All right, thank you. Thanks for participating, everybody. So we'll get started. So I think you all know that this week is CDFA Healthy Soils Week, December 5th through the 9th, but it's also World Soils Day on December 5th. There's 2 different themes. The CDFA theme is biodiversity below the surface builds soil resilience. And World Soils Day this year, the theme is soils where food begins. Well, those are really connected. There's a nexus between that. So biodiversity, healthy soils, and healthy food. Washington State University did a recent study where they showed that if you have a high density and variety of microorganisms in the soil, that's bacteria, fungi, and nematodes, that the soil produced in that soil, or the food produced in that soil, has high nutrient density. So there's a real link between these things, the biodiversity and the food that comes out of the soil. We have a webinar, and I'll stick that in the chat. You can watch that chat or watch that webinar, and I'll send that out. But this webinar was done with USDA NRCS and sponsored by our regional soil health specialist, Kabir, Dr. Kabir, and it's by Dr. Daphne Miller, Aligning Soil and Human Health. So she's in the Bay Area, and you can search her name, and you'll find all sorts of videos that she's done as far as that nexus between good soil health, good quality food, and good human health. So that's something you might want to check out. So here we have also NRCS celebrates Healthy Soils Week, but we do it every day of the year. Here's our soil health webpage, and you can just go to our NRCS California webpage and scroll down, and you'll find information about soil health in California. This is actually Phil out there describing the soil pit. So he's on our webinar today. In there, you also find these testimonials by producers that show the importance of soil health in their production. And again, Scott Parks in Northern California has one, Healthy Soils, Good Food Quality. You can also search the USDA NRCS YouTube, and you'll find all sorts of videos on conservation planning, soil health, all sorts of areas of that kind of thing. So check those things out. So today, again, happy Healthy Soils Week and World Soils Day. Phil talked a little bit about how long he's been doing soils, and I've been doing it, 40 years. And believe me, it wasn't until I think 2015 when the first World Soils Day came about that I think soils started getting some respect. Before that, it really wasn't that much notoriety in soil science, soils. So since then, it's really become very popular. So I really appreciate that as a soil scientist. So today we're going to go over things like background on NRCS Soil Survey Program, how we conduct NRCS soil surveys, how to find NRCS soil survey information, and that'll be in Web Soil Survey. Phil's going to talk a little bit about on-site soil investigations. And then we have some other NRCS soil applications. And then I'll talk about our new California Farm Demonstration Network. And again, if you have any questions, put those in the chat or raise your hand, and we can call on you or just put it in the chat. So soil surveys. If you look at this map of the United States, you can see almost all counties, each one of these little squares is a county. Almost all counties in the US are complete. We have about 95% of the private lands in the United States complete for soil surveys. So you can access information anywhere. If you look in this part of Southern California, that's a lot of BLM land, and it's in progress or it's incomplete. But most of the private lands in California are complete for soil survey. We've been doing this program since 1899 to currently 2022. So that's a long time. And we're literally as old as dirt, the soil survey program. That's a long time. So in the nation, we have 3,265 soil surveys. California, we have 120 soil surveys. We have 7 soil survey offices in California that are continually updating the data every year, and we refresh the data each year in October. So every year, if you go to Web Soil Survey, you'll get the newest data that's been updated by our 7 soil survey offices in California. In California, you can see almost all the private lands are complete. Everything in green is complete. Again, if you get in that southeast part of California, that's mostly BLM land, and there's some in progress. We have a Victorville Soil Survey office that works in this area, and they're in progress right now. So we have 120 soil surveys in California. So next poll question, Phil, if you can put that up there, but we have 2,870 soil series that have been identified in California. And it's basically things we look at are the layers, different textures, different colors, how many rock fragments, what's the depth, organic matter in the surface. All of those different kind of things are parts of the things that we look at to separate the soils. Again, there's quite a few, 2,870. And Phil's going to put a question in the chat as soon as he gets that typed in, and we'll see what you guys have to say about it. Okay. Do you know the name of our state soil? Check the one you think it is. As you're doing your answers, we can see. Fresno, Chico. Did everybody answer their question? Check one, even if you're not sure. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5. So there we go. So what did they answer there, Phil?
So yes, we have 6 responses, and we have 4. So we got 5 different choices, or 4 different choices. Okay, so our state soil is the San Joaquin series. So it looks like we did have some participants get that. And
right.
Tony's showing the map right now. That's the extent of our state soil on the left, and on the right is a profile of what our state soil looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So yeah, San Joaquin state soil. And if you look at the profile here, well, like Phil said, you can see the extent, and most of it is, if you notice, it's on the east side of the Sacramento and San Joaquin River. And why that is important is because the material that this formed in washed out of the Sierra Nevada. The Sierra Nevada is mostly made up of granitics, right? Which has a lot of silica. So this soil, the San Joaquin soil, is about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but it's about 500,000 years old to 1,000,000 years old, in that range. It's old, it's an old soil. So over that time, the surface is top 10, 12 inches is the loam texture. But as you get in the subsoil, that's a clay texture, heavy texture down in this. So over time, that clay weathers and moves down in the profile. But notice this layer here, the white layer. That's what we call a durapan. And that's silica cementation. So that's weathered out of that granitic silica and moved down into the profile and created this hard durapan, which is root restrictive. So that's your state soil. Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about this picture here?
Yes, sure. Okay, so on the left, you'll see a big tractor with a deep ripper shank that's probably about close to almost 5 feet deep when it's in the ground, and it takes a lot of horsepower to do this. So that's why that's the big tractor there. If you wanted to stand next to that machine, you might be shoulder high right there at the front of the tracks there. It's such a big machine. But what it's doing, it's ripping that durapan. You see that durapan 24 to 60 inches deep. They're preparing the land for planting almonds, and without ripping the durapan, you're going to have a lot of restriction on root growth. So with the deep ripper there, they're going to plow through that durapan, which is extremely hard, cemented, indurated in places, and break it up and loosen it up for root growth. So usually they will go across the field in an east-west direction where they have the rows, and then they'll go north-south and try to break things up. And a lot of the Central Valley, where there are durapans and soils like that that are mapped. This practice is very common for orchard preparation.
All right, thank you. So that's the state soil, and it does have that durapan, which is a restrictive layer. So thank you, Phil, for describing that process. Okay, so collecting the soil survey information, the field work. So we actually go out and dig a lot of holes, and I was asking Phil this morning, how many holes have you dug? And his response was something like, too many to remember, and I don't want to remember all those soils that I did dig, but we do a lot of holes. We actually go out, dig those holes, describe the soil. We do that down to generally 60 inches, maybe 72 inches is what the full depth of description is. And when we're doing that, the things we look at again are horizons, the color. A lot of times the surface is darker than the subsoils. The textures of the soil, we take those, the depth, how many rock fragments, organic matter, and we do the chemistry, pH, salts, and SER. So we're collecting that kind of data, but we also collect above ground data like the vegetation, the slope, the landscape, is it on concave or convex position? All of those different things we gather when we're out mapping the soils. So the big question I get is, how many holes do you dig? I've had that question, I don't know how many times when I was out mapping soils. And the question and the answer to that is it depends, right? So it depends on the complexity of the slope or complexity of the landscape. So I put this landscape in here, and this is between, this is west of Winters, California, just west of Davis. And you have the Coast Range in the background. You have the foothills in the midground, and in the front you have the valley bottom. So think about when soil scientists are mapping, they have to partition the environment based on the 5 soil forming factors. And those are climate, types of vegetation and organisms, parent material, time, and topography. So if you think about this picture in this landscape that's fairly complex, if you think about the mountains in the background, that precip is going to be higher. It's probably around 25 inches versus the valley bottom at about 15 inches. So more precip, you're going to have more weathering in the soil. The organisms, if you think about the trees versus the grass in this foreground, there are going to be different types of vegetation, different exudes that come out of those out of those roots, and that impacts the development of soils as well. The parent material. So in the background, you have shale bedrock. So you're going to have soils formed in shale. In the foreground, it's all alluvium, soils that moved out of these mountains and down into the foreground. And that's deep, deep alluvium, whereas in the mountains, you might have shallow soils. Time, how long did it take? Like I talked about the San Joaquin soil, that's 500,000 to 1,000,000 years old to develop. The soils on these slopes, it's always continually eroding down slopes, so those are very young, probably less than 1,000, 10,000 years old. You get on this high terraces, and those soils become older because they're protected and they're not eroding away. They're protected in that. So they have much longer time to develop. And then in the valley, if you're near Puda Creek, which is nearby, closer to the creek, most likely it's the younger. But as you move away from the creek, it's had more time to develop. So those, again, could be hundreds, 1,000 years old. And topography, I talked about that a little bit as well. If you're on concave versus convex slopes, it's going to change how the soil develops. So those 5 forming factors really help a soil scientist determine, where am I going to dig my hole? How am I going to partition the environment? And again, we try to do as few holes as possible. We want to make it accurate, but digging so many holes can be hard on your back. So we try to do as few as possible, but also do it as accurately as possible. So here's the final product. Same landscape, but the soil map. So here's the valley, here's the foothills in the foreground, and here's the mountains in the background. So each one of these, the soil scientists visited these polygons, dug a hole, maybe 2, and tried to determine what soil type was there. And they delineated the boundary of that soil type, just like that, or like down here. So for instance, this soil right here, SH, that map unit symbol, is the San Ysidro soil. It's on 0.5% slopes. It has some minor components because soils don't like to be put in nice little boxes, right? So it's the environment just doesn't allow for that. So we allow minor components or inclusions within there, but the main soil is San Ysidro. So here's the map unit. here's the name, gives you a little information. But as we go into web soil survey, I talk more about how you get the detailed information. One thing that you can see here that I pulled up was the organic matter percent. So this soil, San Ysidro, has 1.2% organic matter and begins to decrease with depth, which is normal. And these are the layers of the San Ysidro. We have the AP, that's a plow layer. BT means there's clay has accumulated in there. The B, the T means, and then so on. So we have BT2, BT3, BT4. So the soil scientists went out and described the layers. They got information as we talked about, and they delineated out that boundary and put a symbol in there. Okay, Phil, if you can get the next poll question, and then we'll go into looking at how you use web soil survey.
Okay.
If you've never used web soil survey, you can search web soil survey on Google, any search engine, and this should come up like this. As he puts that in, yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Yes, so the poll question is, what soil information are you most interested in obtaining? I'll send that out right now.
And you can check multiple.
And you can use the web soil survey to obtain this information.
You can check any or all.
So there's several choices. You might have to use the scroll down tool to see the choices below. And yes, as Tony said, you can check more than one.
And if you have something else you're thinking about, put it in the chat. Let us know what else you'd like to know. If you said other. Production data, Ling asked about that. Yeah, and you can find that in web soil survey. There is production data. So what do we have here, Phil?
Okay, we've had, so far we've got 6 responses. Close the poll, and 5 people are interested in pH, 4 people interested in salinity, 4 in the depth of the soil, 5 people are interested in hydrologic soil groups, 5 are interested in soil textures, only 3 are interested in farmland classification, and we have 1 other, and Ling has entered production data in the chat. Tony, we have a question here. Are any microbial indicators provided?
There is not, and Wyatt, I see that you had that question, and there isn't any microbial indicators provided in this data because that's time sensitive, right? And Phil will go a little bit over technical soil services later, but there are interpretations on how soil health indicators like microbial action can be, and we can look at that when we get to web soil survey, and I'll show that to you. But because microbial activity changes over time, this soil survey won't provide that information. It can give you indicators of how suitable it is for that, but not specific. So well, we do those on sites, and Phil can talk a little bit about that later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start web soil survey. Thank you guys for putting things in the chat, but I'm going to start web soil survey. I'm doing this live. Sure it gets started here. Okay, there we go. So this is the page you're going to get when you start web soil survey. And notice here, there's other things you can go for, like archived soil surveys. Those are the PDFs. You don't see the manuscripts being made. I don't know if you've ever used a hard copy manuscript. Sometimes those are nice. I like using those. But you don't see those made anymore because everything's digital. But you can go in and get a PDF of the old hard copy manuscripts. We have a warehouse full of those. If you want one, let me know. You can also go find the official series descriptions, which is a really detailed description of the soils that you want to find. A number of things. You can go to the Geospatial Gateway. That's where we house all of our spatial data for NRCS. So there's a number of tabs you can go and find here information about our soil survey. But one thing I'll point out, it says here, the largest natural resource information system in the world, and that's true. It is very large database. If you think of all the United States, I showed those maps, it houses all the information for every soil survey in the United States. So large database. So I'm going to start it just like that's how you would start it, just like that. And this screen comes up. And you can see the whole US again. So you can choose anywhere in the United States to get that information. I'm going to start with an address. But first, notice these tabs on top. These are the tabs we'll be using across the top. Area of interest, soil map, soil data explorer, and we'll be using the shopping cart as well. So I'm going to put in an address. And I've got an address near Davis. And it's called Kinsella Lane. And that's in Winters, CA. So I put the address in there, Kinsella Lane, and I get view. So it takes me right to it. And this is actually the UC Davis Ag Station. I'm going to change the scale because right now, oh, wait a minute, you hit scale to get the scale in there and go, okay. So if you want to know your scale, hit the scale. And right now we're at 1 to 3,000. I want to bring that to 1 to 12,000 because that's the scale we map soils at. If you reduce it below 12,000, then you're getting more detail than we actually we map the soils at that scale. So this is, again, the UC Davis Experiment Station or Ag Experiment Station, which, by the way, I understand I heard recently, and I didn't read this, but they are no longer funded, unfortunately. And if anybody knows anything of that, put it in the chat. But that's what I understand, which is an unfortunate thing because they've done some long-term soil carbon studies at this site, and we've gone out and done soil health trainings out here. So I don't know. I'm hoping that that's not the case. So anyway, here's the area that I want. I zoomed into that area. You can put an address. You can put a state and county soil survey area. You can put section, township, range. There's a number of ways you can navigate to your location, but I just put an address. The next thing you want to do is identify the area that you want to get the soils information for. So you have two choices. You can do a square rectangle, or you can click around and do a polygon. I'm going to do the square. So I click on that, and I'm just going to draw a line around the area of interest that I want. So I just want this Ag Experiment Station. And I do that. And what you'll see is you get, one thing it tells me, I have multiple survey areas in the area of interest, which is good. Because if you just do a download of soil survey information, that's generally just for one county. So actually I have 2 counties here that I'm looking at the information. So now you have the area of interest. This is the area you want to get the soils for. So the next piece would be to get a soils map. So again, we're back up with these tabs. You have these tabs here. And I'm going to do a soil map. And this is all on the fly, so it's pretty nice. This is a soil map, just like the map I showed earlier. Each polygon, the soil scientist delineated and put a symbol on there. And you can look at this. Solano County is in the south of Puda Creek. This is Puda Creek. So it's south. That's all Solano County. And if you look at this, Yolo County is to the north. So you can see the full acres in Solano is 459 acres. And then Yolo, it's 1,800 acres. Or 1,400 in a total of 18 total. So the other nice thing is you can just hit this tab right here. And it gives you a detailed map unit description. So you can go right away. If you just want to find out something right away about the soil, hit this. I like these detailed map unit descriptions because it gives you a lot of information. It gives you the elevation range, precip range, mean annual temperature. Is it prime farmland? Yes, it is. Gives you layers, gives you all the layers and depths, and textures. It gives you the available water holding capacity, ecological site. Ling was asking about that. Hydric soils, no. So it gives you quite a bit of information. So I like that. But once I make the map, I'm going to add that to the shopping cart. And I'm going to put a title in there, just World Soils Day, WSD. Go OK. So I added that to the shopping cart, and at the end, we're going to see that. So the next thing, this is just a soil map. Gives me the name, gives me the symbol, but it doesn't give me any information about that soil. So the tab you're going to hit next is Soil Data Viewer. Hit that. And there's a number of things, information you can get. Building site development, water management, so that has irrigation information about it. The soil health. So Wyatt asked about that. You can see limitations for aerobic soil organisms. So you can find some limitation information, but it doesn't tell you exactly what's going on right away now, because that's so variable with time. I'm going to do a land classification. And California Revised Story Index is unique to California. It's basically a productivity index of our ag soils, but I'm going to go to farmland classification. And I'm going to view the rating for farmland classification for this area. And you see this map comes up. I can pull out this legend over here, this tab. And what it shows is all of this area is prime farmland, except for the red, which is not prime farmland. These, like this CTD2, that map unit, has a slope that goes up to 12%. So that's why it doesn't make prime farmland. There's too much erosion potential for that to be prime. And also this creek bottom doesn't make prime. So the whole area is prime farmland. You can also scroll down and see each individual map unit symbol and whether it's prime and how many acres in that polygon. So I'm going to add that to shopping cart. And again, just say OK. And close out this legend. And then I'm going to do soil properties, because sometimes you want to know, you can get chemical properties, erosion factors, soil health properties. Again, that soil health is in there. So you can get that, some of those things for soil health, water features, depth to water table. There's a lot of different things, information you get under soil properties and qualities. So I'm going to do chemistry. And again, there's things here, carbonate, calcium carbonate, cation exchange capacity, which gives an idea on somewhat fertility of the soil, gypsum, salt, electrical conductivity. But I'm going to do pH. And then again, just hit pH, do view rating. And it should come up. Oh, you got to, sorry about that. You got to go down here and put the depth you want. So I'm going to go 0 to 25. And that is in centimeters. You can choose inches or centimeters. I've got it in centimeters. So you need to put a depth. You could go all the way to 60 and it'd give you a weighted average, but I'm going to go 25 centimeters, which is about 10 inches. And then I can hit view. Got to remember to do that part. So here's the pHs. And again, I could show you the legend. So anything from moderately acid to moderately alkaline in the dark blue, and everything in between. So, and again, you can scroll down and see those here. So I'm going to add that to the shopping cart. Again, say OK. And the last one I'm going to do is soil reports. Now with soil reports, it's not going to give you a map because there's multiple properties and you can't map multiple properties. So let's look at again, you have all these different options, but I'm going to go to physical properties. And I'll do physical soil properties and view soil report. And again, it doesn't make a map, it has the soils map, but it gives you the report. And it gives you each map unit, gives you the depth, sand, silt, and clay percents in each bulk density, hydraulic conductivity, available water capacity, organic matter, all those kind of things. So it's got quite a bit of information in there. And I'm going to hit the shopping cart again. OK. And then that's all the reports I want So what I'm going to do is hit shopping cart. And there's the checkout button. Phil mentioned this to me, and I think it's a good idea because I'm going to uncheck how soil surveys are made, because I don't want that. It's a lot of added paper in the report. I'm also going to get rid of references because that adds pages. And I just want, it gives you the table of contents here. I want the soils map. I want the land classification, chemistry, and physical properties. So I do checkout. And I want to get it now. You can download it later. It'll send you an email, but I'm going to get it now and just go, okay. And usually it takes only a minute or two. You can also put a name if you want a custom title in that area right there. So it sends a PDF right away, instantaneously. So here's the report. Custom soils report for Solano and Yolo County, California. Gives you a nice little picture of the area that you provided for your area of interest. But then you go down through and it has a table of contents. Here's the soil map, the legend, this map unit, and it gives you again the acres and the AOI and the LOI. So it gives you all this information. Here's the map unit description that I like because it has all this information in layers about the soil, available water holding capacity, all that. This one holds 10.8 inches. That's a lot. So you get all that information and you go through. Each map unit will be in there. Keep on going down. Here's the farmland classification map, the legend, and so on. So you get all that information. Here's the pH. This report, and there's the physical properties right there too. So you got physical properties as well. So all that information, how many pages was that? 53 pages just in that little area. So that's where you have to be judicious with how many pages you want out of that report. So that's Web Soil Survey. And if there's any questions, we can get those at the end. And that's how it goes. So hopefully that was understandable and getting the information. So Phil's going to talk a little bit about technical soil services.
Thank you, Tony. Again, the Web Soil Survey can give you the big picture of soil properties and classification across the landscape at the landscape scale. But you know, for site-specific information, we really need to do on-site evaluations. So here, I've got some photos here. These are my coworkers here at NRCS. Some examples of technical soil services are, you know, for soil health, we can evaluate soil health properties. We do wetland determinations, evaluating hydric soils, and that's part of the wetland determination process, and other things. But yeah, here in these images, up in the upper left there, Jackie is doing an infiltration test. And to the right, Madeline, who's on our team, she's doing an infiltration test here. This is part of some work we were doing evaluating a no-till cropping system. We evaluated the soil properties, mainly soil physical properties, but also we looked at pH also. But here we're looking at an infiltration comparison between a no-till system and you don't see it in the picture here, but we also looked at tilled soil. And you can go to the next slide, Tony. Here are more examples of on-site evaluations. I'm helping one of our engineers up in Contra Costa County here. We're doing some soil investigations for pond construction. So, you know, when you're constructing pond dams, you have to have a certain type of soil. You can't have a soil that's too sandy or too gravelly or too much organic matter. You have to have really the right combination of sand, silt, clay. You don't want a really expansive shrink swell soil. So our engineers will often call upon us to look at soils for these purposes. And that's part of our technical soil services program. We work a lot with all of our field offices. We have field offices in practically every county of the country. So we as an area resource soil scientist, that's part of my duties is to provide support to our field offices and on projects such as this. We also help our partners and other agencies and private landowners. If a private landowner would need some assistance, we're always available to help with private landowners. Okay, so NRCS contacts for soils. These are our state is divided into these 4 administrative areas, and each area has an area soil scientist. I'm Phil Smith, like you already know. I'm in area 2. Jackie, who was in some of the photos in the previous slide, she's in Northern California, area 1, and Peter's in area 4, and Louise is in area 3. So if anyone needs to contact us, this is how you could get in contact with us for technical soil services.
All right, thanks, Phil. Yeah, and as Phil said, the soil survey, web soil survey, and the soil survey maps are good information, good road use planning information, but for a home site or for something specific to, like Wyatt talked about soil health in one field, you want to go out and look at that specifically. Okay, another cool thing I wanted to go over is this our National Cooperative Soil Survey database. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it's pretty extensive. I'm going to click on this and start that up again. We have over 3,000, I think close to 4,000 samples in California, but you can look at nationwide how many samples we have. It's going to come up in a minute. So you can, the samples will come up here as we wait. So you can see all of these dots represent a sample that's been taken by our soil scientists. And they dig backhoe pits, collect the samples, send them to our lab in Lincoln, Nebraska, where they do a total characterization of those samples. We also have them in other parts of the US, other countries. If you look at, I'm just going to show you this one because I'm interested in this one. So I did a detail to Haiti in 2014. And we did all these samples right here in Haiti. We did like 13 samples in this area. We created a soil survey map for that area. So you can get these samples where we've done international programs as well in other countries, Mexico, South America, anywhere else in the world that we've done those. But I'm going to go back to California and zoom in. So this is all interactive, nice to have. Zoom in a little closer to California. Zoom, okay. So as those come up, I'm going to click on one of the dots and it's interactive again. As long as they come up, and you're going to see the purple dots. That's the typical sample that we send in and they give us a characterization. The yellow is more indicative of if there's geochemical data that's associated with that. So I'm gonna have to refresh this because it's not coming up yet. Let me start that over real quick because I think this is good. Just check this out. Okay, so this page comes up And internet's acting slow right now, but you can query by county, state, and get a series and get that soil data. But again, then you can click this button and hopefully the map comes up. It's acting kind of slow right now. But here's where the individual spots come up, and we can look at those data individually. It's very slow right now. Okay, here it comes. Okay, so again, the United States, hopefully the dots come up where the points are. It's acting very slow for some reason. Of course, this happens when we're live. Just start it over real quick. Sorry about that, guys. I think you'll be interested in this one though, so I'm going to keep at it as long as it starts to come up. Bill has done a lot of this sampling himself. I know you did some in your area when he was a project leader for what, Hanford Soil Survey?
Yes, yes.
Oh. If it doesn't work this time, we'll skip it. But what happens is that when you click on that dot, it brings up the lab data. And I'm hoping it works this time. And this is really cool. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this time it worked. Great. So you can see the yellow dots. That's where we have geochemical data as well. And sometimes I get questions about that, asking if we have that. I'm going to zoom in towards Sacramento. And hopefully let the dots show up again. It does take a little bit of time to refresh. But I'm going to, you'll see how many different soil samples have been taken in California. It's not working the way I want it to right now. Sorry about that, guys. Give it one more second. If it doesn't work, we'll go on. Anyway, yeah, some reason it's not reacting quite right. So I'll just do that and one more time. Sorry about this. I'll just click on one as it comes up because I'm not going to zoom in. It seems like there's a problem with that. Well, we're going to forget about that. Sorry, didn't come up. But what happens is oh, there it is. Okay, I'm just going to click on one of these without. So what happens, you click on the dot, that sample location, and like I said, we have over 4,000 of these just in California. You can see the whole US. And it gives you the name. This is the Boomer series. We talk about that. And then I'll go to the primary lab report. And it's all interactive, comes up on your screen right away. So this looks a little daunting, but again, it gives you the series name, tells me it was sampled on January 24th, 2009, gives me all the layers. So again, you have all the layers, and then you have the total sand, silt, and clay in this area. It gives you the bulk density, so you get that information of that soil site. But the one thing I do like about this is the organic carbon. So look at that's 6.44. That's organic carbon. That's high for California, but it was in the coast area. That's why we're getting such a high amount of organic carbon. Typically, that's going to be about less than 1 for most of the Central Valley, but So to get the organic carbon, you can multiply by 1.7 to get the organic matter. So you take the 6.44 times 1.7 to get percent organic matter. And that would be a high percent. That would probably be around the 10 to 12, which is very high for California. Typically, you wouldn't have that much organic carbon. So that didn't work the best, but that is where you get that. You zoom in and get them. And usually that works, but I won't delay anymore. So there it goes. I'll get out of that. And so we'll continue on. I just wanted to bring up our partners, UC Davis. They have the California Soil Survey Resource Lab, Dr. Toby O'Gene. We work with them quite extensively. They're always using our data at the Soil Survey Lab and creating new products. And one of them you probably used is this app on your phone. You can be out, it's GPS located. So wherever you are, you can find the soil type. You can download, that's a free app. He has a number of other applications that he does. So you can just search for UC Davis California Resource Lab. And again, Toby does a really good job of creating new products of our soil survey data. Last thing I want to talk about, because we're almost done with the hour, and we might want to have some questions if you have that, but we have a California Farm Demonstration Network. I don't know if many of you have heard about that, but the partners in that are NRCS, UC Davis, UC California Ag and Natural Resources, CDFA, the Farm Bureau, and California Associated Resource Conservation Districts. And we've been around for 5 years, and our main goal is trying to promote increased adoption of soil health practices in California. As you know, California has over 400 crops, and it's difficult to get adoption when you have that. When you think about the Midwest, like Iowa or Indiana, there's like 3 major crops. And so the corn industry, corn people can all get together and come up with ways to adopt soil health practices. In California, it's more difficult task. So our mission is to try to increase the adoption of soil health in California. And one of the things on the website you could go to, and I can show you real quick, if my internet's working well, is this meeting series. And here's something, we've had 4 different meeting series, and you can look at these. What happens to soil properties when you add compost over a cover crop? And I don't know if you've ever heard Dr. Eric Brennan speak, but he's great. So you can go to the recording and click to hear that recording. And we have 4 of those, and they're still online. I could put that in the chat too. Just put that in chat and you can go to that site. And there's 4 different ones that have been done. What are the benefits of whole orchard recycling? So these are pertinent to California, so it's nice. How do we pull a sample for meaningful results? And then 4, how do we properly test for soil microbial dynamics? So all of those are on that site. You can go visit those recordings right now if you like. The last thing, get this back up there. That's that site, the CFDN. The last thing I'll show is we are going to launch a website for this California Farm Demonstration Network. And what the reason for that is we're going to show where the demonstration sites around the state are, where people are demonstrating soil health practices. And you can go in there and click. This will be launched soon. And what happens is you'll get on the map. So if you know people that want to get on the map, you can do that. Find a farm, find an event. And here's the farms that have been entered. You can see there's quite a few in the Sac Valley. 8 of them have been entered in there. And when you click on one of those, you can click on one. And it tells you about the company, learn more. And it gives you the information about that demonstration site, specialty crop company. It talks a little bit about them, what the products. You can go to their website. It's in the San Joaquin Valley. So that is what we're working on to get that out. So we can, basically the main reason for that is to get more implementation in California soil health practices. So that's it. We went a little over time because we started late, but if there's any questions, let Phil or I know, put him in the chat, or we can unmute you, either one. You can raise your hand. Thank you, Carrie, for attending. Thank you. Thanks, Madeline. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining. And we did record, so we can post this up for people to watch. John's typing. Thanks very much. Lots of cool data. Thank you, John. Okay, thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll check out.